Our goal for today is to talk about schedules of reinforcement. So to review really quickly, we said that contingencies of reinforcement include continuous and intermittent. Continuous reinforcement might be used to shape a new behavior or to teach a new behavior, but we said in order to maintain the behavior and make it resistant to extinction, we want to switch over to intermittent or partial reinforcement, meaning we're not going to reinforce the organism every single time it exhibits the correct response. We're going to reinforce sometimes, and that is where our schedules come in. That's where the schedules of reinforcement come in. So we have two types of schedules. Those are ratio schedules, which provide a reward after a certain number of responses. Remember, a response is a behavior. And we have interval schedules. On interval schedules, rewards are provided after a certain amount of time or after a certain time interval. These schedules can be either fixed or variable. All that means is if it's a fixed schedule, there is a defined number of responses that need to be shown. For example, an individual needs to earn 5 stickers on a sticker chart in order to gain access to a toy from the toy chest, or a fixed amount of time that goes by. Let's say a child is praised after sitting still for 10 minutes, or the number of responses or the number of responses or time is variable, meaning the organism doesn't know how many behaviors it has to exhibit or how much time will go by before it receives reinforcement. So fixed just means a certain number of behaviors, a certain amount of time, which is defined. Variable means the number of behaviors and the amount of time is unknown to the organism. So to dive into this a little bit more, on a fixed ratio schedule, rewards or reinforcement appear after a set number of responses. So if a student gets a gold star for every 10 correct answers, that is fixed ratio. They know they need to get 10 questions correct in order to get the gold star. Buy 10, get 1 free. You know you have to buy 10 in order to get your reward. For individuals that sell cars or sell really anything, if they're earning a commission or a bonus for a certain number of cars that they sell and they know the number, this is again fixed ratio because the number of responses or behaviors, in this case selling cars, is known. In a video game, in order to accumulate a certain number, in order to accumulate lives, you might need a certain number of points that you've earned or something. If the organism knows how many behaviors it has to exhibit in order to receive reinforcement, it is a fixed ratio schedule. A variable ratio schedule, on the other hand, means that the organism does not know how many responses they need to exhibit before reinforcement is delivered. This was our slot machine example. If an individual sits down at a slot machine and starts pressing the button, they don't know how many times they have to press the button before the slot machine is going to pay off. For this reason, variable ratio schedules produce very consistent and very high rates of response, and they're very resistant to extinction. Picture a rat in a Skinner box, and the rat knows that it's going to eventually receive reinforcement like a food pellet for pressing a bar, but it doesn't know how many times it has to press the bar until the pellet comes. So it's going to press and press and press and press and press until the reinforcement comes, and it's going to continue to do so because it doesn't know how many bar presses are required in order to gain access to the food pellet. So again, variable ratio because it's response dependent or behavior dependent, and the organism doesn't know how many responses, it produces a very high response rate. Other examples of this reinforcement schedule include playing the lottery. You don't know how many times you have to play before you might win some money. Telemarketers don't know how many homes or individuals they're going to have to call before they get a yes. Now we're into the interval schedules, which are time-based. A fixed interval schedule means that rewards appear after a certain amount of time or a fixed amount of time has gone by. It doesn't matter how many responses the organism gives. This is time dependent. This produced a very low rate of response from the organism, and we're going to talk about why in a second. Weekly or monthly paychecks, weekly quizzes. I'm going to use quizzes as my example to talk about something called scalloping. So we see this phenomenon called scalloping with a fixed interval schedule. This is our number of responses, and this is the amount of time that goes by. I'm going to use the example of a quiz. Let's say we have a teacher that gives a quiz every Friday, right? So here is our quiz right here. Here's our quiz on a Friday, right? And this is our studying behavior that we're graphing. All right, so Friday. We might have studied Friday morning before the quiz, let's be honest, right? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning. Here we are studying again because we know the reinforcement is coming in the form of the quiz and potentially the good grade that you're going to get on the quiz. All right, so this phenomenon is called scalloping. If I have a dog who knows that my dog Burton, right, we feed him at a certain time every day, he's not going to get up and check his food bowl at 5 o'clock in the morning if we don't usually feed him until about 8. Same for you. If you're waiting for a really important letter in the mail, you're not going to check it. If it typically comes at noon, you're not going to go outside at 9 o'clock in the morning to check the mail, right? You're going to check it when it gets close to noon. So again, this produces a very low rate of response because the organism knows, hey, I don't need to exhibit the behavior until a particular amount of time goes by, and they know that amount of time. And our very last schedule is called a variable interval schedule. So this means that reinforcement is delivered after a particular amount of time, but the organism doesn't know how much time is going to go by before the reinforcement comes. So think of a pop quiz as being a great example of this. Think of if anybody works in like a corporate, an environment where you work at a chain restaurant maybe. Sometimes they'll send in secret shoppers from corporate, and you don't know when this person is going to come in and be evaluating you. The idea is that because the organism doesn't know when the reinforcement is coming, they're going to exhibit a very consistent, steady rate of acceptable responses, right? Because you never know when the quiz is coming. So I guess in theory, although I don't know how true this is, you would keep up with your studying. If you don't know when your boss is going to pop in, you're going to hopefully always be doing the right thing at work. As far as checking email is concerned, and even social media, this is why we check email and we check social media kind of compulsively, I guess, especially if you're not getting notifications on your phone when you get a like or something like that, because you don't know when the next person is going to like your status or when that important email is going to be coming, and so you might check it compulsively. And that pretty much sums up our schedules of reinforcement. You do have a couple of questions in your notebook to answer using this chart, which we will go over together.